In this video, we'll look at creating knitted fringe with contrasting colors using a technique from Estonia, from Pärnumaa in southwestern Estonia. This technique can be done both on the right side and wrong side of your knitting. We will be creating fringe on the right side, and we will be making it with contrasting colors, creating loops to make our fringe. We need a few things to make our fringe. You'll need a nice contrast color yarn, a nice pair of scissors for trimming the ends of your fringe, and then handy tools for making those loops an even length. Now, this is basically a really nice, easy to handle stick, and the width of your stick or tool will be the length of the loops of your fringe. So make sure you pick the width that you want your fringe to be. To work your knit fringe, you will always be working from the bottom up, regardless of what type of project you are making. This is so that your fringe hangs in the correct direction downwards. So you will work up until the very top point of your fringe. So if I place my fringe tool on top to get an idea, you can see that's how my fringe will hang. So I've got a nice background of stockinette for which my fringe to lay on top of. So when you work your knit fringe, you can do it in small sections or spanning the whole length of your project. I am going to be working my fringe with a contrasting color. So the color I've been using to do kind of the background or the base of my swatch is what I will call the main color, so this pale lilac, and I'm going to be using a nice dark contrast color for my fringe. So I'm just going to knit to the point where I want to start my fringe, so I'm just going to get past my little border on my swatch, and then I'm going to start my fringe. Now when I start my fringe, I'm going to drop hold of the main color and pick up my contrast color. I will be showing how to do this continental style, but you can do this absolutely English throwing style. So I'm going to just hold my yarn, my left hand here. Now what you want to do is leave yourself a tail with your contrast color, and it should be on the right side of your work. Now you want to give yourself a bit of a tail. This will be trimmed to match the length of our fringe when we're finished, but give yourself more than the length that your desired fringe length is. I'm now going to hold that yarn, so tail to the front, got your yarn depending if you are doing this continental or English style. I'm going to insert my needle into the first stitch purlwise. I'm going to purl that stitch with the contrast color, like so. But I'm going to keep the stitch on the left needle. So I've got stitch on my right hand needle with my contrast color, and on the left needle I still have that first stitch in my main color. Now what I'm going to do is start moving the right hand needle in a motion to kind of make this contrast color take hold. So I'm going to take my right needle, go into the stitch on the left needle, so come down, in, and through that stitch, and I'm going to then slide it off. Now what you're going to notice is as I slide this off, the stitch that was on my right needle in that contrast color will come off, and it comes around a stitch that was on the left needle that I picked up with my right needle, now on the right side. It comes around it like a purl bump, and then you can pull on your contrast color to tighten. So what I have is what looks like a little purl bump in the contrast color. Now we're going to grab our fringe tool. So you'll want to hold your fringe tool in your right hand with the right needle, and we're going to then bring our contrast color to the front, and you want to wrap it around your tool. Now you can wrap it over and under, bringing up to the needles, or you can go the other way, under and over. Just make sure that you pick one direction and you're consistent with it the whole length that you're doing your fringe. I tend to personally go with over and under and up to the needles. Okay, so I'm holding that fringe tool in my right hand with the right needle, wrapping it around my tool and bringing that yarn up to the needles. And then we're going to repeat that same action. So I'm going to go into the stitch on the left needle. Ooh, make sure it's wrapped around. It will be a little bit weird having the tool there, but it makes a nice uniform length for your fringe. So insert purlwise into that stitch, pull the yarn through as if to purl. Do not drop the stitch on the left needle off the needle. Keep it there. I'm gonna just kind of move this around so you can see. We're then gonna take our right needle and go into the stitch on the left needle to pick it up. In, pick it up. And again, that contrast color stitch that was on the right needle will come off, wrap around like a purl bump. So, and then you can pull to tighten. So if I pull this, you can see it'll tighten again as well around my tool. So I'm just going to repeat that going along. So for however many stitches your pattern tells you to make your fringe. So again, make sure you're consistent in the direction you're wrapping your contrast or fringe yarn around your tool. So either over and under or under and over. Bringing up to the needles, go into purl, purl with your contrast color, leave a stitch on the needle, take your right needle, go in to pick up that stitch on the left needle, drop off, wrap around. And then I'm going to wrap. Always make sure you're wrapping your yarn around your tool the same way. Go into your stitch as if to purl, pull through, take your right needle, pick up that stitch on the left needle and slide it off and go. And you can tighten a bit after you've done that. So it should start looking like so. Now I'm going to do a few more. Now you don't need to keep the loops on here the whole time. I tend to do a couple and then slide them off, particularly if you're working on a larger project or you've got several stitches that you need to do fringe on. Kind of get into a rhythm. When you do want to take it off, simply just pull it out like so, and you'll see your lovely little fringe there. Now, if you needed to continue on and you've got more stitches to do, so if I was going to do my fringe all the way to the end of my swatch, to make it comfortable, I would probably do about 5 loops and then slide it off the stick. When you need to do more, just slide it onto the last loop you did. Just that gives it a little bit of ease in holding it in place, and then carry on. When you're done with your fringe, so if I wanted to just do a small section here, when you're done, all you want to do is grab your nice pair of scissors and cut your contrast color. Don't worry about it being totally flush. You can always give it a trim. It's better to have it longer than shorter. So that is my fringe. So nice even loops with the help of my tool, and you have these contrasting color purl bumps at the top of the fringe, which is just how that contrasting color was wrapped around our stitches in the main color with that motion of picking up the stitch on the left needle again. So when you finish your fringe, you're going to work these stitches again. So if you were doing just a small section like this, not the full length of your project, you're going to slip those stitches back to the left needle and work them with your main color, so picking up your main color. If you've done it to the end, just start afresh, new row or round. And I always follow the making a fringe with purling. So I will purl with my main color those stitches, and that kind of firmly locks those fringe stitches into place, and you'll get like a little kind of garter ridge type situation going there. So when you work fringe, you're kind of working your stitches essentially twice. So you will work it making the fringe, and then you'll go back with your main color like so. Super simple and effective. When you're finished working your fringe, you can then trim your tails to simply match the length of your loops and your fringe. So give it a bit of a haircut. You can do this straight after finishing, or you can that fringe round or row, or you can do it at the end of knitting your project. But then you have a nice even looking fringe.